A container of shoes produced in Aba this week will travel a long way before reaching the Atlantic Ocean. It gets loaded into a truck, driven west across most of southern Nigeria, through state after state, through heavy traffic and bad roads, until it arrives in Lagos at the Apapa Port Complex on the country's western coast. Apapa has long handled the bulk of Nigeria's container trade. The federal government also concedes that it is overwhelmed. This has been the route for every container leaving Aba for as long as the city has been making things at scale. And Aba makes a lot of things. Around 20,000 workshops are packed in a few square kilometers, producing shoes, clothing, and leather goods. If you're yet to subscribe to my channel, kindly like and subscribe. Now back to the video. Their customers are spread across places like Accra and Dubai. Most of these products are transported by road to the port facilities in Lagos for export. The problem is geography. Aba is one of Nigeria's biggest manufacturing hubs, but it sits inland. The open ocean is about 70 kilometers away, close enough to see on a map, but historically a massive logistical obstacle. While Abia State technically reaches the river networks that feed into the Atlantics, it lacks an open ocean coastline. For years, that layout seemed like the end of the story. Then recently, Alex Otti, the governor of Abia State, stood with engineers from China Arbor Engineering Company, the firm that helped build the Lekki Deep Seaport, and announced an ambitious new plan. What if Abia didn't need a coastline to have a port? The idea sounds simple on paper: connect Aba to the Atlantics through an existing river network. In reality, it's anything but simple. It means dredging nearly 19 nautical miles of river. It means securing approvals from neighboring states that operate their own ports. And it means surviving a federal approval process that has buried more than one project that looked remarkably similar. So the question isn't just whether Abia can build a port, it is whether a state without a coastline can engineer one. Abia State is not the kind of place you would expect to find a seaport. Located in southeastern Nigeria, the state has no coastline. The Atlantic Ocean lies to the south, but the coast is controlled by neighboring states, rivers, and Akwa Ibom. Abia itself sits inland, about an hour drive from Port Harcourt. But the team behind Aba Seaport project argued that Abia geography is not as restrictive as it looks, and Abia does have one thing working in its favor. Flowing through the southern part of the state is the Azumini Blue River, which connects to the larger Imo River. The Imo River runs south towards the Atlantic Ocean through the Akwa Ibom state. From the proposed port site at Obeaku in Ukwa East local government area to the open sea, it's about 23 nautical miles, around 43 kilometers. Most importantly, the waterways already exist. There is already a continuous waterway connecting the proposed port site to the Atlantic Ocean, meaning no new canal would need to be dug through land. What the river does not have is the depth needed for the modern cargo ship. Larger container vessels typically require deep channels to operate safely. The Imo River system in its natural state is far too shallow to make the route usable for international shipping. Tens of kilometers of river would need to be dredged and then continuously maintained. And much of that waterways lies outside Abia State. So this is no longer just an engineering challenge, it is a political one. Any plan to connect Abia to the Atlantic would depend on waterways controlled by the neighboring states. To understand why Abia is pursuing this project, you have to look at Nigerian ports. Despite having the largest economy in West Africa, Nigeria handles only about a quarter of the region's cargo traffic. A significant amount of trade that will pass through Nigerian ports instead move through ports in neighboring countries such as Ghana, Togo, and Benin. Most of Nigerian cargo is concentrated in Lagos ports, Apapa, and Tinkan Island. For decades, they have served as the country's main gateway for import and export. But they are also heavily congested. Trucks often spend days waiting to enter the ports, creating delays that increase costs for businesses across the country. By 2026, this trend had become impossible to ignore. The federal government secured approval for $1 billion loan to rehabilitate the Lagos port system, citing decades of infrastructure challenges and underinvestment. At the same time, The new ports were beginning to change the picture. Lekki Deep Sea Port, which started operation in 2022, quickly emerged as one of the country's most important maritime facilities. Its success demonstrated how much demand existed for additional port capacity. For states looking to attract investment and improve access to global markets, the lesson was clear. Nigeria needs more ports. Abia leaders saw the opportunity and began asking whether part of the growth could happen in their states. To understand why Abia is pushing for a seaport, you first have to understand Aba. Aba is not Lagos. It doesn't have a major seaport. It doesn't on most days have international flights. What it does have is one of the largest manufacturing clusters in West Africa. Locals call it Japan of Africa. In Ariaria International Market alone, various estimates put the numbers of shops at more than 24,000. Shoes, clothing, leather goods, electronics, products made here are sold across Nigeria and exported across Africa. And that's only part of the picture. Just outside the city sits the Eyimba Economic City, a planned 9,803 hectares special economic zone, backed by over 200 million Afrimix Bank for its first phase. The federal government owns 20%. More than 70 Indian manufacturing firms have already expressed interest, and unlike many industrial projects in Nigeria, this one has something manufacturers care about even more than tax incentive, and that's electricity. The zone is connected to the Aba Integrated Power Project, a dedicated 24-hour power network operated by Geometrics Power across 9 local government areas. So Abia bets it's straightforward: build more factories, attract more manufacturers, produce more goods. But then a very obvious problem appears. How do you get all of that cargo to the world? Today, most exports from southeastern Nigeria must travel hundreds of kilometers before they ever reach a ship. That challenge is not new. In 2006, the federal government approved the Isiala Ngwa Inland Dry Port. The facility was designed to handle 50,000 TEU annually and serve businesses across Abia, Anambra, Enugu, Ebonyi, Imo, Delta, and Benue State. 16 years later, the project remained only about 10% complete, which reveals something important. The Southeast doesn't have a production problem. It has a logistic problem. A seaport at Azumini will change that arithmetic completely. There is one detail Abia government keeps returning to: the money. In August 2025, Governor Alex Otti was asked a simple question: when will construction begin? The answer was surprisingly direct: not until the funding is secured. As he put it, before we start, we must see the money so that the project does not end up abandoned or delayed halfway through. And the reason becomes clear when you look at the engineering. According to the technical report prepared by China Harbour Engineering Company, the proposed route would require dredging roughly 19.5 kilometers of waterway to create a channel suitable for large vessels. That may not sound dramatic, but dredging is often one of the most expensive parts of building a port. And unlike a road or a bridge, the cost doesn't end when construction is finished. Rivers naturally fill back with sediment, which means the channel would have to be maintained continuously year after year just to remain navigable. In fact, earlier discussion around the project assumed a smaller dredging requirement. The newer survey produced a larger figure. The difference was significant enough that Otti reportedly asked planners to go back and review the calculations, which brings us to the companies behind the proposal. China Harbour Engineering Company. China Harbour Engineering Company has done this before. The company built Lekki Deep Sea Port, Nigeria's first deep water port, which entered operation in 2022. And it doesn't just build the project. In 2021, the company invested $221 million and acquired a 52.2% ownership stake in the port. That matters because the structure being discussed in Abia looks very familiar. A Chinese engineering company, a state-owned providing land and support, and the federal government providing approvals and policy backing. That model has already produced one of Nigeria's most important ports. The question is whether it can do it again. A working seaport at Obiako will not just serve Abia. It will reroute cargo for 9 states. It would give Eyimba Economic City direct access to international shipping lanes. it would let Abia manufacturers ship goods without first sending them on a 1,000-kilometer round trip to Lagos. And in theory, it will push Nigeria closer to capturing the share of West African maritime traffic its economy already commands. The Nigerian Port Authority 2025 report showed total cargo throughput at 129.3 million metric tons, a 24.8% jump in a single year. Demand is not the problem, capacity is. Every new port that comes online absorbs cargo that the existing system can no longer carry. Aba case is unusual because the cargo is already there. The factories exist, the workers exist, the market exists. What's missing is the last mile, or in this case, the last 90 nautical miles between an inland industrial city and the open sea. For now, a survey vessel from China Harbour Engineering Company is working its way down a quiet river in Accra East, taking depth surrounding and sediment samples. If the numbers come back right, the next boat down the Azumini will be carrying shipping containers stamped Made in Aba. If you like content like this, kindly subscribe to my channel. Thank you. See you in the next video.